There we go. I love starting with like a little elevator music boogie. So Nalmai Harai, and welcome to the fourth panel of Marginalia Litfest Live 2026. I'm your host, Jackie Lee Morrison, so thank you so much for being here, whether you're tuning in live. I see you if you're tuning in live. I see all five of you, or catching up later with the recording. So our fourth panel is Reality Bites with two amazing award-winning authors who I admire very, very much. There is a giveaway. Well, it looked really uncomfortable when I said that. So anyway, there's a giveaway at the end, so do stay to the end to find out how to win. I'm going to introduce our panel. So first up, we have Anthony Lapwood. Anthony is a fiction writer and teacher based in Te Whanganui-a-Tara, Wellington. His story collection, Home Theatre, won the Hubert Church Prize for Fiction in 2023 and was a finalist in the Sir Julius Bogle Awards that year. His new novel, The Carnivore Diaries, is forthcoming from Aporo Press. So welcome, Anthony. I've got some cheering sounds. And next, Pip Adam. Pip is a Wellington-based queer tangata tiriti writer of 5 novels. Cluj, which is coming later this year. Audition, which was published in 2023. Nothing to See, published in 2020, The New Animals 2017, and I'm Working on a Building 2018, and the short story collection Everything We Hoped For, which was published in 2010. She makes the Better Off Read podcast, in which she speaks with writers and artists about making and working. So thank you both so much for joining me, and some cheering and clapping for Pip as well. Now, we only have an hour, so I'll call on you to speak, but please do feel free to jump in. I recommend muting yourself if you're not speaking, so you don't get any weird sounds like, e.g., my cat screaming in the background, wanting to be involved. If you're watching live and you have any questions for our panel, please write them in the comments as we go, and I will go through them in the last 5-ish minutes of the session. I'll also remind you. So let's dive in and start with origin stories. Where did writing begin for both of you? Pip, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Can you hear me okay? Oh, sweet. Sorry. Yeah. So first of all, thanks so much, Jackie and Anthony. I just couldn't think of 2 people I'd rather be chatting to on a Friday afternoon. Okay, for me, it started when I was about 11 or 12. For Christmas from Santa Claus, I got a typewriter, like an old-fashioned typewriter. This is in the early 80s, because in those days you could get a job as a typist. And my mum was really impressed with people that could touch type. So I loved this machine more than life itself. Like, I just loved it so much. So it very much started in the action rather than the thinking about writing. Like, I started off sort of copying things like letters that we'd get from the bank and that kind of thing. And then, and then I just started going from there. And the first thing I ever wrote was a play about 2 girls who were being mean to another girl. So I don't know if that tells you what my school life was like. But yeah, so that's where it all started for me.
Amazing. That's funny because I inherited an old typewriter from my mother as well. It was an electric typewriter, and I maintain to this day that I think it was haunted because it would turn itself on at night. And when I was trying to sleep in my bedroom, it would turn itself on at night, and because it was electric, it would go and just start making like all these crazy robot noises. So I think I inherited a haunted typewriter, and anyway, so how about you, Anthony? Where did it all start for you?
Kia ora tātou. Lovely to be joining you both for this discussion. I was really struggling to think about where it sort of began for me because it feels like something quite innate that I've just always been drawn to. So I was trying to sort of think, what is it about me that kind of pulls me toward the desire to write? And I've always been a bit of an introvert with a keen liking for books, and I think one of the big attractions towards reading for me was just that ability it gives you to engage with representations of the world kind of at your own pace, to kind of slow things down and give you time to find your own way into it. And I think that probably is what I enjoy about writing as well, is that ability to kind of just take a look at things kind of brick by brick as they come together, um, and to consider possibilities, and just let sort of kind of creativity and curiosity sort of lead that process rather than having to contend with a lot of sort of external pressures, which I don't enjoy. um, as I think that's kind of where stuff just seems to sort of push me towards. Probably my earliest memory of anything to do with writing was as a very young kid, deciding I wanted to either be a veterinarian or a screenwriter. So sort of a near hit for one of those.
Oh, those are very different paths. I love that. So let's define speculative fiction for our audience, since that's primarily what we're talking about today. So what exactly is it, and what drew you to writing it? What is the appeal? Anthony, do you want to go first?
I will. And I thought I would cheat with this one, if that's okay, and kind of defer to the master, the great Ursula Le Guin. This is an enormous stonking selection, not a collection, but a selection of her short fiction. It's split into two parts, and the intro to the second part I quite like. So I thought, is it okay just to read a little bit from that? Because she talks about genre. She particularly talks about sort of fantasy being kind of permanent and infinitely adaptable and kind of predating history and literacy. And then she goes on to sort of give some examples of how magical realism and science fiction and so forth are just sort of variations of fantasy. She says science fiction can be seen as a brilliant modern development of fantasy to use the imagination within the parameters of the rationally possible, or at least the plausible. Then she says genre as a concept which could have served as a useful distinction of various kinds of fiction has been degraded into a disguise for mere value judgment. The various genres are now mainly commercial product labels to make life easy for lazy readers. She doesn't hold back. Lazy critics and the sales departments of publishers. It's not my job as a writer to make life easy for anybody, including myself. I love that last bit in particular. And so I don't know why I write in particular genres, because I never think about it as genre when I'm going in. I think about it as experimentation and play and just putting interesting things together and seeing what might come out, and what those different things might reveal about each other. So I mean, I have an idea of sort of serious play that I apply to the whole process, and that's where I get the excitement and the enjoyment from, is sort of not considering boundaries, but just considering possibilities with whatever I try to chuck down on the page. That's probably the best answer I can give.
That's amazing. There's also another incredible Ursula K. Le Guin essay that I love referring to, called Genre, a Word Only a Frenchman Could Love. And so Ursula K. Le Guin has a lot of thoughts about how genre is a construct that writers should not really be concerning themselves with. So Pip, what do you think? Do you have some thoughts on how you would define speculative fiction? What drew you to writing it?
I like that word speculate, because I think I also associate it with like dreaming and imagination and daydreaming. And I also like that it doesn't have a real or unreal dichotomy built into it. Because for me, I still feel like I'm writing reality. Like I started writing very, very, like it would fall very clearly into realism. And I still feel like I'm writing realism, because the world is so strange to me that, yeah, there's this, I think there's this phrase that is in law. What is it? A reasonable man. What would a reasonable man think is right and wrong, or sane and insane, or real and not real? And I just feel like there's something nice about speculative fiction that means I'm not bound by that definition of reality. And yeah, and just that idea, like learning more and more about how different people see the world, like the boundaries of realism and non-realism break down even more. Some people hear voices, some people see things, some people, all these things can happen that so I saw realism as quite constrained. I love what Anthony says about it. Just this idea that it's very hard to critique the reality with the reality as well. Like, it's very hard to critique, say, capitalism if you're writing in a capitalist mode. Like, it's stuck. Whereas if you can invert it somehow, giving the power to the smallest person, like it does. So I think that's what attracts me to it, is just this idea that, yeah. And I think, as Anthony said, like, the boundaries are very leaky, I think. Yeah.
I love that. So a slight deviation from the questions that I've asked you, or that I prepared rather. I'd love it if both of you, excuse me, could give a little blurb about your forthcoming books, so that you can give the audience a little bit of a taste of what you're writing. Pip, do you want to talk about Cluj first?
Yes, it took a long time to write a blurb for this book, so I might just read the blurb that we came up with. It says, "This is the story about the end days of a tech company and its all-powerful owner, told in the style of a stand-up comedy special." And yeah, I think Cluj, and it says Cluj is a workplace satire about artificial intelligence and the value of a body. So yeah, that's what I think it is about for me. It's a questioning of the technocracy. I do need to learn how to say that word. It's a questioning of wealth. It's a questioning of unchecked wealth. And it is, it's told in the voice of a artificial intelligence, large learning model. So yeah, that's the book.
That's really interesting. I can't wait for that. Anthony, how about you? Can you tell us, give us a little blurb of the Carnivore Diaries?
I sort of can. I was going to say too, I know that, Pip, you've been thinking about comedy and the sort of the critical power of comedy for a long time too. So I'm so excited to see how that is going to manifest in this novel. I can't wait for it. The Carnivore Diaries. I don't have a like a polished blurb yet. It's sort of, I'm working on it at the moment. But it's essentially a kind of epistolary novel. So it's all written in kind of forms of diaries and letters and so forth. Sort of ephemera. And it is about a gay guy in his sort of 30s who returns to his family home after his parents separate, and then after they also go missing. So he sort of returns home ostensibly to sort of look after the family dog to begin with, and then sort of spirals into his own sort of investigations of what might have happened. And it's sort of told in kind of two parts. The first part is from the sort of the points of view of the parents, and their kind of marital difficulties, and their relationship with their son. And then the second half is really the son Lewis, kind of really diving into the past and trying to unpick what those relationships mean for him and for the future, and hopefully locating his folks.
Well, that also sounds like that's going on my TBR immediately. You should see next to me, I've got a massive trolley to all the books that I'm supposed to read. And I just keep buying new books and adding them on top. And I promised my husband when I got the trolley, it would be one book in, one book out policy. Has not happened. Anyway. So
you've got to have a selection.
Let's think. I do, yeah. You just need I'm a bit of a mood reader. I gotta feel. Sometimes I'm a little bit into some thriller. Sometimes a little bit into some kid lit. So, it depends. So, if we think about writing as an act of communication, what do you think you're trying to put across in your works? Anthony, do you want to tackle that one first? It's a bit of a big question. My question's always very large, so feel free to go in.
It's a good question. I mean, I don't think of books as communication. I mean, they are, but it's not the terms that I think of them in. Like I was sort of saying before, I think firstly of the act of fiction writing or storytelling as a form of experimentation, which is quite selfish. Like, I don't have an audience. I don't have someone else that I envisage communicating with. Like, a story for me is kind of like a laboratory, and you go in and there's various kinds of equipment, depending on what genre you're writing in. And that equipment helps you to sort of create some interesting specimens, to investigate some interesting material. And you just sort of work away in that laboratory by yourself, just having a good sort of tutu around for a little while, until you come up with something that you feel is sort of satisfying as a discovery. But then you kind of leave, and you just leave that space set up for the reader to kind of come into and occupy and kind of make some of those discoveries for themselves, or sort of different discoveries. And so in that sense, I'm kind of gone. I'm removed. I don't really care anymore. By the time the book comes out, I've stopped caring. Like, I'm over it. But it's new to the reader, and they are in there. They are finding newness in it. And the collaboration is not between me and the reader; it's between the text and the reader. They're bringing themselves to that process. They're kind of making meaning by combining what I've managed to put down with what their own worldview and their own kind of experiences look like. So it's quite disembodied for me, and I struggle to think of it as a communication, because it's first of all just something that I'm experimenting with and then handing over, and the communication is sort of between the book and the reader, and I'm no longer part of it. Authors we're distant in time and space by the time the reading happens, and we're beside the point by that stage. Our job is long done. So I like my authors dead, and long may that last, I think.
That's very interesting, because actually something I think about a lot is the parasocial relationship between author and reader. And some discourse that's been around recently is around pretty privilege. Like, do you have to look a certain way in order to sell books? Do you have to be white? Do you have to be cis? Do you have to be, all of these different things? But in your view, Anthony, you think that none of that stuff should matter. It should just be the relationship between the reader and the text once you have stepped out of the picture.
Yeah, sort of. I'm not quite so hardline as maybe I made out. I mean, I can see there is a natural interest, and there are levels of interest. And when you read something that resonates with you, you kind of do often have an attraction to knowing about the person who produced this thing that became meaningful for you. But you don't know that person in the least. And I think sometimes even speculating about them can be kind of a dangerous act, and kind of can get you and the author into trouble. It can sort of, you're dealing with a bit of a hologram version of the author at that point. You're not dealing with anything that's concrete or real. It is your projection, it is your imagination that's doing most of the work there. That's not to say that sort of own voices and so forth don't matter, because that is the way that stories are produced and told is a worthwhile part of the process to pay a bit more attention to and to continue working on. But that sort of produces a certain set of stories, right? Those stories then kind of still live in their own space that readers go and engage with. But you're giving audiences a richer range and depth of stories to engage with at that point, that aren't kind of controlled by a few, and therefore more narrow in how they present other lives. But the authors of those stories are still, remote in time and space to you. So I always like books that sort of refuse to publish an author photo, or that will just like publish an author photo from like 40 years ago or something like that. So you've just kind of got no real idea what this person actually still looks like.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Pip, what do you think? Do you think of writing as an act of communication? And I know in the past you've said that you believed in the closed door when you're writing, and then opening the door and letting the reader in. Is that something that you still believe as well?
Not so much anymore, actually. Like, Damien Wilkins said a lot of helpful things to me, and one of the very helpful things he said to me was, write for someone smarter than you. And I think that is what I write to. I write to someone smarter than me. And I do find it a little bit more helpful now to have that thought in mind, of this, I don't know, this person who I have a responsibility to. I also think about my communities as well. And, I do think of those people in the room, like, it's helpful. And that was something that Victor Rogers said to me as well. He's like, if you would read it in front of these people, then, you've done the right thing. Whereas if you feel a bit edgy about, oh, what if so-and-so, yeah. And I think I do think of it as an act of communication, but I just sort of I was trying to think what it would say, and I think what it would say is, "This is my best faith act as this. This is my best faith work. I've done this with an open heart. I've done it. I've tried my hardest. What have I got wrong? How can you fix it? What about what I've got wrong prompts you to do something else?" And yeah, so I like the idea that I don't set out to say it wrong, but I like the idea that someone might find one of my books dissatisfying, and then that will help them find a way to write the book that they find satisfying. So, yeah, I think that is probably, if there's any communication, that's sort of what that communication is. Yeah. Yeah.
Something I find really interesting about you, Pip, is that you think of writing as a thing that should be separate from reality. So you don't like it when the reader becomes immersed in the text. You want them to always be aware that they are reading fiction. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I just think that's such an interesting concept.
Yeah, I I love an immersive read. Like, I'm not, like, I mean, I love an immersive read, and I think there's plenty of space for immersive reads. And I just think what I hope to do is never, what's the word? Like, never, like, I want the person to be consciously thinking, I don't agree with what Pip's saying here, or, oh, that's interesting. And not even Pip, like, whatever is happening with this artifact. So I think I really exactly virtually, I'm just saying what Anthony said, like, I want there to be space for a reader to add and subtract from the work as they read. And I guess my way of doing that is that I make the work odd and not very satisfying. I'm very much in love with bad writing. I was talking to a friend about it last night. I love the very skillful failure. Like, I really love it. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't know if there's any massive agenda for that. It's just that I think that's the sort of work that excites me. And also because I can never be sure, the way that I see the world, I know is different from the way other people see it. And I wonder also if maybe there's a bit of a protection kind of thing in there, like a couple when I was writing realism, people would come to me and say, "That's not what the world's like," or, like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'd be like, "Oh shit, I thought that was how the world was." So yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that in there as well, like keeping it as an artifact rather than, attempting to make it immersive. And but like I say, I love an immersive read. Like, I'm just reading oh god, I'll forget it. But yeah, I'm just reading this amazing new crime novel by Molly Crichton, and it is just so good. And I'm just in there like, who did it? But yeah, so yeah, that's that. Sorry, that's a weird answer. Now I don't know how to wrap up, so I'll just stop talking.
I love that though. No, that was great.
I just I love that idea of a skillful failure too. Books that don't risk something, I just don't like them. I'd rather read a skillful failure than just a book that played it safe and achieved a safe result. And I also really like what you're saying about a responsibility to community and having some idea of a reader that might be smarter than you too. And that's what I love about I don't worry about that stuff when I'm sort of doing the first few drafts, but when I'm doing rewrites and edits, that stuff totally comes into play then. Like, then I am editing for someone more particular. And when you start getting feedback from sort of early readers and so forth, then often that is when the work kind of starts to actually find its feet. So that part of the process is really special for me too. I think, once you do sort of find an audience of a kind, it does often tend to sort of clarify quite a lot in the work.
Interesting. Talking of skillful failure, I'm not sure if this would count as skillful failure, but one of my favorite authors is Diana Wynne Jones. And Diana Wynne Jones has maybe 60 books. That's just so many. But the thing that fascinates me about them is she had all these incredible ideas, these fantastic beginnings, and the books would just end. And it would just be like, she'd just be like, I'm writing now. this book is finished, and there would be no conclusion and no sort of feeling of coming to full circle. No, now I'm done. The story is over, and it drives me crazy. But at the same time, I kind of love it. I love that idea that you don't have to do a wrap up. You can just finish. Well, I want to talk a bit about AI because this is very relevant to Pip's new book. There has been some discourse recently about AI used in short stories, specifically with the Commonwealth Prize, and now also there was an article recently about the Sargent Prize. And I know Catherine Gigi has a lot of very strong feelings about AI use. So if we're still thinking about this active communication and human intent, how do you feel that AI fits into the framework of that, and which parts of the author-reader relationship can AI not do? I'm going to make Pip go for this answer first, since his book is the AI book.
Oh gosh. And
just to say as well, before we talk about this, that obviously this is all just our personal opinions on AI. None of us are experts here.
No. I don't. So what I think is of interest about a large language learning model is that it's this strange hallucination and kind of reckoning of our entire digital record. So then it's manipulated by these 4 or 5 men, all of whom have a very I don't know what the right word is, like, have an interesting, Peter Thiel took a moment to answer the question, you do want the human race to survive though, don't you? And so it is this very interesting subject for work, I think. It's this opportunity to listen to something inhumane, but made of us, like almost like a Frankenstein's monster, I guess. And it's also made of words, like the entire thing is made of words. And therefore, I think that's of interest to us, but only as a subject. Like Sam Altman has got this great quote where he said, the question of whether we're building a creature or a tool confuses people. It confuses me, which is terrifying. But I do think that as far as a tool goes, I think that in other industries, it has some uses, I think that it's not working very well in those industries, which is why it's been directed at creativity and writing and drawing, the lowest of the paid jobs. It promises to take all this money that we're paying in wages away, but where it's directed itself is at these very, like low paying jobs, often things that we get for free, like talking to our friends. So as a tool in our industry, I just don't think it has a place. Like, I would love to be proved wrong, and like, well, no, actually, I don't know whether I would love to be proved wrong. I don't know. But yeah, I have read some amazing work that has used AI, but has used the language of it to challenge it. And those are the works that I'm quite interested in. But as far as that relationship goes, I'm just not sure. Yeah, I just, like I say, I think it is an interesting object. It's an interesting subject. But I just think as a tool, I'm not sold on it at all as far as that goes. But yeah, I don't know. And I mean, it's so, like it feels like such snake oil at the moment, and we're being sold it as inevitable and all this sort of stuff. And then there's these amazing sort of stuff being done with it in other areas, and there's this massive push to be the first. And I don't know, like, yeah, I don't think it's a mistake that it was directed first at the creative industries. Like whether a poem's good or not is so subjective that, like, yeah, why not get it to write a poem and then just say that's a good poem? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Not very helpful, but yeah. Anthony, tell us.
Yeah, tell us what you think, Anthony.
Oh, no, I would just, on that comment you just made too, Pip, about that race to be the first, and I think that link between that sort of, a new kind of frontierism and capitalism in terms of that brute charge to kind of to claim a space first, so that you can exploit it, just hasn't gone away, and it's got obviously long and troubled kind of history, and it's still with us. AI is so big and complex, it's so hard to know what to make of what parts of it. With creative writing, I think sometimes, well, a lot of the time, it feels like the output is being mistaken for the input as well. So if the output is a book that uses language, the input must be language. And language is like the last thing that you get to as a writer. It's obviously an important part of the process, but like so much happens before you get to the words. There's all the thinking and the feeling and the dreaming and the wondering and the being in the world and the way that you interact with the world. That kind of really embodied experience that we have is where the work starts, and that's what makes each sort of writer or each artist interesting. I sometimes think of artists or writers as kind of like a prism, like when we each sort of refract the light of the world that comes into us in different ways, and it's the different sort of parts of the world that we refract that people are attracted to. And I don't know what an AI refracts. Like I don't know what I don't know what kind of embodied experience it has. Like it doesn't have a relationship to the world. It has a relationship to other language, like Pip was saying. So it's kind of divorced from the things which really we have an interest in, which is the world, which is something that we go to art to help us understand a lot of the time. So I think the outputs being mistaken for the inputs is a big fundamental error. When I'm talking with students, because I do a little bit of teaching sometimes, I always would try to remind them that, like, when they're trying to find their voice or what have you, like what they put on the page is the last thing that their voice is about. Like, first of all, it's speaking is an act of seeing. It's what you notice in the world and what's important to you and what you care about, and that stuff finds its way into the work. So part of the job is getting better at slowing yourself down and noticing more intently and taking a stronger interest in the world, so that your work can be richer for it. Which again, that isn't what AI is geared to do. So that's my little ramble on it. That's just my current sort of reckoning with it. But I think if it's going to be a replacement for art at any point, I think you've got to sort of step back and say, well, what is it that we actually value in art? And for me, it's that engagement with the world.
I love both of those answers, and in the comments we've had, ooh, yay, get them tech bros, preach, and yes, Anthony, prisons of experience. So thank you for those comments, because they are making my day. So do you guys know about the satellites? Do you know about the whole issue with the satellites? Oh, this is like my little TED talk. This goes back to the sort of race to be the first. Elon Musk's company, who are sending satellites up into space, he wants to have something like 1 billion satellites in space, and wants to there's also been proposals to put space mirrors in space, so that the mirrors can use satellite beams to make sure that everyone has and the world is turning. And Starlink, yes, thank you, Starlink. There's all sorts of crazy things that they want to do, and it means that it's literally destroying the night sky, because now whenever you take a picture of the night sky, you get all these streams of light, and that's just satellites crisscrossing constantly. And apparently Starlink have to do a maneuver every second to stop one satellite from crashing into another, every second. And that's terrifying. And there's space junk falling out of the sky and landing on fields in Canada. It's a new fear that has unlocked in me, that I will be crushed by a piece of space junk the size of a giant, like, Ford driver. So that's my little TED talk. Stop the satellites. Stop the billionaires. Stop Starlink. I think think that really ties into this idea of having to be the first. They want to be the first to put this many satellites up into the sky. They want to be first to have the best AI companies. But something that we haven't even touched on is AI data centers and how they're massive and they are destroying the environment. They use, every time you type in something into ChatGPT or whatever, it uses so much water to cool down the systems. Plus, on top of that, you've got all the pollution coming from the data centers that is literally killing the people who live in the areas where the data centers have been built, because they haven't been built far out enough, and they're enormous. They're absolutely huge. You can see them from satellite images that are in the sky from too many satellites. You can see the data centers. So yeah, it feels a bit depressing, but I guess that is why we like speculative fiction, because we can think and talk about these sorts of things. So let's talk a little bit about world building then. Did you like my segue? My segue from my rant back into the panel. So when we think about world building, it's not actually specific to speculative fiction, and both of you do a bit of teaching here and there. So what similarities do you find across genres, particularly when it comes to world building practices? Pip, do you want to go first with this one?
Yes. I just going off your rant, there was an amazing article published in The Atlantic yesterday where they talked about the engineering failure of AI, like that it just doesn't work as an engineering prospect, and it's a really great article. Just recommending that. Right, world building. I think I'm very lucky because reality confuses me. So the world has always seemed very strange, and because it seems strange, it's always felt like it needed a lot of description when I write. So to begin with, I got a lot of when I wrote realism, people got very frustrated. Someone called it overly documentarian, like, because I would come into a room and I'd say, right, there's a bookcase there and it's about 4 meters from there. And then there's one over, so I think I have an odd relationship to world building because I don't feel like this world that we live in, I feel like everybody's building it all the time. Like, the world that I see is different from the world you see. We can go into one room and I don't know if you've ever had that experience when you leave and someone said, oh, that was weird that those people were talking about that. And I'm like, I didn't even hear them. So I think, and Anthony talked about this, like this idea that a character will have a world and the description of that world through the perspective of the character, no matter what person you're in, whether you're in third person, second person, first person, but what they will notice is building their world, which I think then helps you to see some of their motives and what they do. So I think is where the two go. Like with Audition, I wanted to create a whole brand new world. And I think what it taught me when I came back to write things that were set in this world is that it needs as much world building here because it's what the characters are seeing or what the perspective is seeing. It's not so much it's nothing solid, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know. What do you think, Anthony?
I think I've lost my mouse cursor is what I think. No, I totally agree. I mean, world building is, for me, it's about setting the particular conditions for particular drama to happen, and for that drama to create an understanding of particular characters. So I'm kind of always getting back to what does it mean for the characters? Like, how does the world building serve the story? And it's everything from politics to culture and society, as much as it is sort of, flora and fauna and terrain. Like, what is it that sets the conditions for the story to happen is kind of the world building for me. And, in terms of spec fic, there's, physics and magic, or essentially, the rules of what's possible are crucial to that. I think you're right, but like a lot of people sort of assume that realism doesn't require world building because so much of it can be taken for granted, but kind of none of it can be taken for granted. We all have different frames of reference. We still need a frame of reference for the drama. We still need to understand what the pressures are that are at play in this particular story, this environment, this scenario. Sometimes the writing that needs more work, that I sometimes read from writers of realist fiction and spec fiction, either there's insufficient world building to understand what the consequences are for the characters in that world, because world building is fundamentally about consequences. What are you up against? Or they're too much focused on the world building and not enough on, well, what does that mean for the characters? And finding that kind of that happy mix of the two, which looks different story to story, is kind of where it's at. It's one of the things I like about writing is that you have to go from the very macro to the very micro all the time. And my brain loves that. So yeah, the way that the world building kind of has to filter through everything is kind of one of the great pleasures of writing for me.
So that leads into my next question very nicely, actually. Is there an idea that you have that you really want to write about, but you haven't done it yet? Anthony, do you want to go first?
I've always got like notes on the go for things that are, in progress. There's possibly half a story sitting in a document somewhere that I need to dust off and finish, which was sort of about AI before everyone was talking about AI. I find it really difficult to write into a moment. I don't know how you're finding it with Cluj, but I need distance. I need some time between when the thing happened and when I'm writing about it. So I don't know if I can pick up that story now. But that was sort of about the sometimes kind of infantilizing nature of the internet, and how we kind of go to it as in a slightly regressive mode, which can be fun and can be all good. But the way that the sort of the dynamic sort of seems to sometimes overtake people, and we kind of get lost in the comfort of the internet, and get robbed of certain adult faculties like greater critical thought and so forth, that can become dangerous. And so let's just say a phenomenon happens in which this tendency becomes exploited. So that is one story idea that I might dust off again at some point. Trying to get this next book out the door is my primary goal at the moment.
Understandable. What about you, Pip? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I really want to write about that and haven't quite matched it yet?
Yes, always. That's how I know I'm alive. No, I just want to put in a plug. When we were talking about world building, there is an amazing book by Jeff Vandermeer, which is called Wonder Book, and it has a process for world building, mainly for science fiction books, but I've used it in realist fiction as well. It's quite an amazing piece of work. And yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for the thing that I can't write, the thing that I'll have to learn how to write through writing it. And at the moment, the way that's manifesting is Cluj is a lot about what happens when you separate a mind from a body. So when you have a mind that has no experience of a body, witnessing a body that it can't access any thing of. So I've become very interested in the idea of noise rather than words. So yeah, I'm trying to write something at the moment that has no words. Oh my God. I'm like one of those people that just goes too far, like goes off the edge and is an idiot. So yeah, I'm it's just such a fucking stupid idea. But and it just sounds so wanky. But yeah, I am writing plays, but I'm really interested in what it looks like on the page rather than performed. So yeah, I'm interested. I love body noises. I think farts are hilarious. I think burps are hilarious. I think laughter is hilarious. I like the sound of breathing. So I'm just interested in, so my next book will be about, it'll be a fart book probably, but yeah. I just really, I just love the noise of the machinery of bodies. Yeah, so I'm quite interested in that, but obviously I've got no idea if I could do it. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But yeah.
That sounds
Oh,
amazing.
interesting.
Pop along to the
Yeah,
next
an
fart
adult
play.
fart book.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, this is a question that I like to ask everyone, because I think it's very interesting to hear how people reflect on themselves. Is there anything that you've learned either about yourself or about the publishing industry that you wish you knew when you first started and you know now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to call on you. Sorry, I was just
sorry,
like,
no,
I'm waiting for you. No, Andy, go
that's all
ahead.
good. No, just because Pip sort of alluded to this. So when I started writing short fiction with some sort of degree of seriousness in terms of my intent, and wanting to understand it more, I had a great teacher who said that writing never gets easier, but you get better at it. And that has stuck with me as an absolute kind of truism. And one of the reasons I still like thinking about that is that not only do you get better at it, but you get better at understanding the nature of the problem as well as how to solve it. For me, like writing is like what Pip was saying. It's a constant game of setting yourself problems and then setting out to solve those problems. So you're always causing trouble for yourself, and that's the fun of it. So that pursuit of getting better at stuff is getting better at setting better problems, as well as getting better at finding the answers to those problems. I think keep pushing the boat out, Pip. You come up with something incredible every time. So
I agree.
That's me.
Pip, what do you think? Is there anything you've learned about yourself or about publishing industry?
The publishing industry is brutal. And I think it's very confused about itself at the moment. I think at the moment it doesn't know what it wants. It doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think that unfortunately the people that are feeling the most pain from this are writers. I think that's just sort of that's sort of what's on top today, like I find it quite upsetting. And like I think, when I think about AI, I think the best thing we can do is rebel against it and burn it to the ground and, like start being in that local way, like I would, even if it means going back to like scratching on the walls of caves and whispering into each other's ears, I think I think we're in for a rough time, and this is why I feel so buoyed, like with our Portal Press and Lawrence and Gibson, and like just this kind of grassroots kind of stuff, and people that are publishing online. I think about IS Bell, the amazing success that they're having with their romance work, and I don't know, I feel quite excited about that. That is my TED talk. The thing that I learned about myself is that when I first started writing, I think I started writing to be published. Like I was like, oh, it'll be so cool. I used to like drive home and do interviews with Kim Hill, that kind of thing. And actually that's the part I enjoy the least, like the writing has to be the thing for me, like I have to enjoy the writing. And, like I am often writing like it just has to be. Like, I do enjoy being able to have other people read my work. Like, I was at an amazing event last night for Palestine, and someone came up and said, "My mum and me read your book and liked it." And that is beautiful. And I'm so fucking grateful to publishers that make that possible. But for me, it has to be the writing because nothing's guaranteed, especially not at the moment, and I often think, am I writing something that I'd be happy to spend money on and photocopy myself and hand out to my friends? And, like that is the thing that I think I've discovered about myself in the publishing industry. So yeah, that's me.
I think you should do some zines, Pip. You should start doing some zines and pass them out. I'd love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I love it.
Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, which has flown by so quickly. If you have any questions for Anthony or Pip, please do put them in the chat. We can read them out. In the meantime, I have a question about short stories and novels, because both of you have come from short stories. You're both now in novel land, and Anthony, you teach the short story fiction class at the IIML as well. So what are the appeals of short fiction versus longer form fiction, and do you now feel like you fall more in one camp or the other? Pip, what do you think?
I think the short story is my favorite form, and I think that in reality most of my books are short story collections disguised as novels. And at the moment I'm working in very short form. Like, I've started writing these little robot things that are like, 4 lines long and stuff like that. So the appeal for me often is finishing, and I know that sounds really lame, but I think when you're in the heart of a novel, it can get very discouraging, and it's so nice to remember how to finish. Like, sometimes I forget, like you were talking about Wyn Jones, like sometimes we forget how to finish. So I think that is great, and also just that constraint, like just that, there's nowhere to hide in a short story. Like, there is nowhere to hide. And I love the play of it. Like, my partner does crosswords and Sudoku and like Wordle, but my Wordle is kind of like trying to ring, the universe in 500 words or something. So yeah, I just love it. That's the appeal for me. What about
What do you think, Anthony?
Lost my cursor again. There's such different projects. I mean, the two biggest differences I've noticed going from primarily short fiction into a novel. One is because a novel takes longer, there's more time for my relationship to the work to change. So you become a different writer in the course of writing the book. And so by the time you get to the end, you kind of look back at the start and go, I would do that slightly differently now that I'm, a couple of years on, and the kind of the new ideas that you encounter along the way your own view of the world changes. Everything that happens in life, has more chance to occur. And so I find it very hard to kind of stay disciplined about the scope of a book. And I'm a big fan of kind of overwriting anyway. I much prefer to see how much I can stuff into a story or a novel before it breaks, and then start taking things out. But so there's much more room to do that with a novel. You can just keep putting things in. So I'll be interested to see what people make of the book when it comes out. There is quite a lot in it. And there's just such a bigger canvas to manage. Like short fiction is a brutal form and does require a huge amount of discipline. But I think of it as like, it's like, juggling a set of knives, a short story, but a novel is like juggling a set of knives plus a chainsaw. It's just like so much more can go wrong. So yeah, we shall see in a few months, I suppose.
I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it. Well, we better wrap up, but I just want to read out some of the comments. Remedy C9322, love the prism. Chapman Day, thank you for such a fascinating, funny, and intelligent conversation. Loved it. And then Remedy C9322 has also said, do you guys know about the satellites? It's such a great start to a sci-fi story. So I'm gonna leave that to both of you. You may have that. So lastly, let's tell everyone where the audience can find you and where your books are available. Anthony, do you want to go first?
Sure. I do have a website, anthonylapwood.com. Thank you. Most indie bookstores will have a copy of Home Theatre, which is my story collection, that one there. It's a blue horse on the cover. You can't quite see, maybe. If you buy them online, I really recommend Book Hub. It's sort of a collection of independent bookstores coming together and pooling resources to do a online store that draws from everyone's stock, designed as a competition to the likes of Amazon, but local. So yeah, if you're shopping online, Book Hub's a good way to go.
And please do follow Anthony on Instagram at Lapwood, and that link is clickable down there. And how about you, Pip?
I also have a website, and I like making it. And I just wanted to put in a quick plug for the podcast as well, better-read.com. And yeah, it's just one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world is make those podcasts. I'm so grateful for the people that continue to come on there. And yeah, I think my books are available on in some bookstores, most bookstores, I guess. There's also an audio book of Audition read by an incredible actor. And yeah, just around, I guess, is where you will find my shiz. That sounds, wherever, just around sounds good. Yeah. Oh,
And
can I
you
put
can
in a
also
plug?
follow. Yes, please.
Sorry, I just on the 14th of August this year, 2026, at the Arrow Valley Community Centre, we're having a launch for Cluj, and everyone's invited if they want to come along. We've got some amazing people reading there. Kerry Donovan Brown will be reading. Always Becoming will be reading, and Branavan Nangalingam will be reading. So yeah, it'll be a fun night. So yeah, if you want to come along, please come along. Thank you.
And what was the date for that again?
14th of August. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. 14th of August, Cluj.
And I should say quickly, sorry,
so-
that the Carnival Diaries will be out November.
So 14th of August for Cluj, November for the Carnivore Diaries. Put those two dates into your diary. You're going to have to block off the whole of November because we don't have a date yet. Well, thank you again so much to Anthony and Pip for joining me this morning. Their Instagram accounts are linked in the description box below, so please make sure you follow them. I'm also going to pop them on the screen now. And if you'd like to follow me as well, I'm at Jaxie's LM, and that is where you need to go if you want to join enter the giveaway. So both authors are giving away copies of their books. Pip is giving a copy of the Canadian edition of Audition and the New Zealand edition of The New Animals. And we also have a copy of Anthony's Home Theatre, which is generously supplied by Thwap Books. So thank you very much to Thwap Books. So what you need to do to enter the giveaway is leave a comment below with your Instagram handle, say one sentence why you'd like to win, and then hop over to my Instagram and I will announce a winner at the end of the festival. Thank you again both so much. This has been such a cool conversation. I've loved it.
Thank you so much, Jackie. You're a rock star.
Agreed. What an amazing festival to put on.
It's my pleasure and my heart and joy to do this festival. So please join us tomorrow morning for the next panel, which is at 10 a.m. New Zealand. I will be chatting with Emily Ugavule and Tia Baker for this panel, Story, Sovereignty, and Reclamation. It's a really exciting panel, and we look forward to seeing you there. And thank you again both so much for joining me. Okay, bye!
Bye!